Guys, good to see you all. Rob, real quick, I want to start with you because this is where my head naturally goes. When Karine Jean-Pierre was press secretary, and I know the mainstream media never want to talk about it. You and I have talked about this in the past. Karine Jean-Pierre cut the hard passes for 400 journalists to get into the White House. You guys suffered because of that. Have you had any luck with the new administration? I know we're like 8 hours in, but did they telegraph to you how things might be different?
Well, first of all, Sean, it's great to be with you on this glorious day. And I can tell you one thing, we're back on the email list, so we're actually getting the press releases and all of the information sent to us. Now, it's hard to believe that the Biden people would cut off access like that. But yes, from that moment of 12:01, the Daily Signal was once again receiving information from the White House press office.
Signal strong.
We will see exactly how this new Trump administration decides to go about with the briefing room and the seating arrangements and all of that. I think it's probably too early to know. Maybe we'll know later today, in fact. But we're in a good spot. After Biden took away and revoked our credentials, we went through the process of legally separating from the Heritage Foundation, applying to Congress, which is now a prerequisite under Biden, obtaining congressional credentials. And so we are in a great spot, and we're actually better off today as a result of what Joe Biden did.
Don't give them any credit, Rob Bluey. All right, Ashley Hayek, literally America First Works, and you worked your tails off to help make this moment happen, and we detailed all that. That being said, when you sat back and listened to what President Trump said yesterday and then what he did, what stood out to you? What did you say, I'm so glad this happened? And I know we all have a list of like 80 things, but is there something that Ashley Hayek said, you know what, as I knocked on doors and I asked people to support President Trump in Michigan and everywhere else, I was hoping that he would do X, and I was so glad to see that yesterday. What was that?
I think overall, it's just the immediate action, promises made, promises kept. I worked on the campaign in 2020, and when we lost, when that election was, when there was the cheating happened and all of those things happened, you ask yourself why? Like, why did this happen? And it's devastating. But I really think looking back, it's a blessing in that those 4 years were critical to have that infrastructure, to identify the personnel, to map out a plan, to, showcase a very hard contrast between America First and America Last. And that opportunity, I think, prepared the president, the president's team for an incredible first day of office with his own pardons. I think also Joe Biden giving the pardons to the J6 Commission, to Fauci, to his family members. It's an extreme admission of guilt by Joe Biden and his administration. And I think President Trump is going to continue to smoke out all of the extreme corruption that we've seen from the past 4 years and restore power back to the American people.
Yeah. Dan, the thing that I think was funny, to Ashley's point, every time the Dems try to go after President Trump, right, the lawfare, the civil attacks that try to kick him off the ballot, right, all the stuff they did during COVID with voting, it backfires. I think I agree with Ashley. I've been saying this. He is a stronger and more effective president and will be more consequential because of what they did.
Yes. And my sainted husband has said the same thing over and over again. And I agree with all of you. Perhaps we needed this past dreadful 4 years to prove as definitively as possible without actually falling into the abyss. We got to the edge of the abyss and were pulled back because finally the left jumped the shark. And I think it may be the sleeper issue. The very overt issue, of course, was the condoned invasion, the sponsored invasion by our own government across our southern border in particular, but not limited to that. But also the gender madness, the anti-scientific gender madness that overtly threatened, in particular, girls and women. And I think that awakened a lot of people to grievous wrongs that the left was willing to inflict on the American people via their Democratic Party, via the Democrats. And people rose up and said, we can't do this anymore. We can't tolerate this. There is a limit. Everybody's talking, Democrats and Republicans, about the return of common sense, and not a moment too soon.
Sean, if I could just pick up on what Nan was saying, it's not just Trump. I mean, he's done remarkable things in just the last day with all the executive actions, but it's Republicans in Congress, too. You will remember, as I do, 8 years ago, it seemed that Republicans in Congress were disorganized. They didn't necessarily know what to do. There was a debate whether or not you do repeal of Obamacare first or tax cuts first, and it took a whole year to basically get all of that sorted out. I feel like they have a clear direction now about what is a priority. The Senate, shortly after President Trump took the inauguration, passed the Lake and Riley Act. It will now go back to the House. It'll get to Trump's desk. That'll probably be the first bill that he signs into law. So I am seeing a change on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the thing that was so true about this is it wasn't theoretical. People literally were living in a world of high inflation. They were watching people come over the border. They saw what was going around the world, and they were like, "Okay, this isn't a theory, like a normal proposition where it's like if my opponent does this, this will happen. Whatever." I'm living it every day, and I went, "Okay, I want to see a change." The first thing I mentioned, the White House website, and actually the thing that I thought was so telling afterwards was also in the middle of the speech, I get a text that says the CBP One app is down, right? This app that was allowing people to flow into the country. Just literally the light went off and they put up a thing that said, basically, sorry, we're closed.
And there's two things that I thought were really interesting. Number one, all of the executive orders around border security. Joe Biden and our former border czar, Kamala Harris, tried to say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's really up to Congress. And President Trump just proved them wrong instantly, that there is something you can do from minute one, whether it's shutting down the CBP One app, whether it's just signing that executive order for stay in Mexico. And I think the beauty of this is he moved so quickly. In the previous administration, the left had so much time to react to this. It's kind of amazing that they weren't prepared to react to this in a more meaningful, dramatic way. But it's happening.
Were you surprised, though? To your point, I keep wondering, am I surprised at the reaction, or are they just this? And I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be insulting, but do you think that they just can't respond, or that they're just not coordinated, or they're just bad? I mean,
there's two pieces. Number one, as he's talking about, the invasion at our southern border and the fentanyl coming into our communities, and Republicans are clapping, and behind him, the Democrats are sitting there sour-faced with their arms crossed. It's like, did you miss the memo? Did you not understand that this was a top 2 issue for every single voter across the country? And that's why you continue to lose. But they don't, it's like they can't get their head around it. But honestly, if you remember, you look at, the kids in cages and just like the outrageous claims that they made, I thought they would have had a more offensive attack on, his border issues. And I just haven't seen it. I think that just underscores the point that the left is still so divided. There's no unity. And that's why it's so important for the conservative movement to stay as united as possible, get President Trump's nominees through, make sure we're elevating all of the messaging and the framing, and making sure that the policies are getting directly connected to the American people so they realize, this is because of this new administration. This is because of America First. We can never go back.
Sean, if I can just offer a quick thought, I think they are that arrogant and that complacent as well. They have really had, if we look at it, they have had a hegemonic combination of our, not only government, the deep state, and those 51 security clearances that have been yanked have been argued persuasively. Rod Martin said it as the first blow against the deep state, but also every institution, practically, as we all know, academia, popular culture. I mean, we came this close. Look how they got behind Kamala Harris, who is as overt an idiot as you will ever see in American public life, and completely advanced according to her identity, completely from start to finish. So they were that arrogant. They were that complacent. They are clinging to it now, as we all know. All we can do is forge ahead with the Common Sense Coalition and pray for their discernment.
Yeah. Let me talk about the people. This is something that I keep saying, it's the people, the process, and the policies, right? Let's talk about the people for a second, because I think yesterday, one of the things that I think didn't get as much pickup because it was all a bunch of one-offs. they went in and surgically removed a ton of people, including like the commandant of the Coast Guard for DEI concerns that they had. The FAA administrator, TSA administrator was told, step down. Person after person was removed. Career folks at the State Department removed. So there's the outgoing, get them out, and then there's the incoming people. Like they went in and started to put in key people in key places to move the agenda. And it's just something I kept thinking back to 2017 when we had an acting attorney general, and she wouldn't execute what Trump was saying. So Trump removed her and then elevated one of the U.S. attorneys to acting attorney general. That was just, again, this is because they had the time to think about it and to do it. As you guys recall, I made a big deal. I was fired off of the board of the U.S. Naval Academy, unprecedented. I'd been advising the team to just fire all the appointees, and they're executing on that. I don't think that's my idea, but my point is these guys went in and pulled the right people out and are starting to put the right people in, Rob.
They saw from 8 years ago how difficult these bureaucrats and some of these career officials could make their life and implementing the MAGA agenda. And so they're not going to repeat that mistake this time again. So personnel is policy. I'm glad to see that they are putting such a strong focus on it. And until they have these Senate-confirmed cabinet secretaries, it appears they will have acting secretaries in place who are actually willing to execute on what the president's directives are, as opposed to the past where you had individuals who would stymie it. Sean, there was a recent poll that came out from Scott Rasmussen that showed that those in the federal government are there to basically stymie and resist the president's agenda, particularly those who voted for Kamala Harris. They are going to continue to be a thorn in the president's side and try to do everything they can to block the rules and regulations from going into effect. So the job doesn't stop on day one. This is just the beginning, but it's going to take 4 years or more for this administrative state to be cleaned up the way it needs to.
Actually, he also revoked the security clearances of those 51 intelligence officials that lied about the Hunter Biden laptop and calling it Russian disinformation. Again, it's symbolic, but I think important. These people used positions that gave them a security clearance, government positions, that they went out and tried to misinform the American people and sway an election based on lies.
Good riddance to all of them. And this is probably it's probably a very unpopular opinion. However, I believe that after you serve, you should lose your clearance. You don't need that. Take that with you into the private sector. It's gone. You're done. Because we have had these career bureaucrats who have weaponized their position, that take advantage of the taxpayers, that completely just obliterate the trust in government, and then they're able to negotiate their contracts when they get out of government, and they're fully taking advantage of the system. So until we have like a hard reset, I don't think you should take that anymore. It's done. Your job serving the government is over. Strip that clearance and move on. They can apply with their new private company or whatever they may be doing.
Nan, though, I think he sends a very big I think if you're sitting in your job today in the government, they've made it clear, right? They are not afraid. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to do. And you're either on board or you're gone.
Absolutely. President Trump knows this government now from the inside, which he did not when he was elected and in 2016. Now he does. And that makes all the difference. He knows all the workings of government. So he has made it clear in his executive orders that he will not tolerate the kind of ideological bias towards the left, toward all of their corrupt philosophies. He made, as we all know, significant EOs yesterday, rescinding so-called DEI orders, that whole universe, critical race theory, said no longer enshrined in our federal government, in its hiring, in its promotions. So he's sending a very clear message and agreed, of course, those 51 security clearances, the firings, including the woman who was in charge, I think, Deputy Secretary of the Navy. I may have that. You'll know, Sean. Thank you for your service.
He got rid of all. It's too numerous. Literally, the stories coming out, it was just one after another. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.